On today's episode, we're talking with Shannon of Second Act Success. She's going to talk about what happens for women when we are ready to make a move, make a change in our life. So, if you are considering what might lie ahead for you in your second act, today's episode is for you. Take a listen.
Welcome to the Gap Year Podcast, where we explore the who, what, where, when, and why of gap years. It's real people sharing their stories, ideas, and experts diving deep into how you can make the right decisions in order to have a meaningful gap year. This is the place to be no matter where you are on your gap year journey. I'm Michelle Dittmer, your resident gap year expert. Let's jump right in.
Hey there, everybody, and welcome to the Gap Year Podcast. My name is Michelle Dittmer, and I am your host and Gap Year expert. Today, we're continuing our series on adult gap years, and I have the famous Shannon Russell with us here today, who's going to be sharing so much about the world of women and transitions and forward momentum, and we're just going to have such a great conversation. So, Shannon, thanks so much for joining me today.
I'm so happy to be here to have this conversation, Michelle. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah. All right. So why don't you let our listeners know a little bit more about you, perhaps about anything important you've done or written or are doing currently. So why don't you share a little bit of your background so people know why they should be listening to you?
Thank you. Yeah, so I began my career in television, working in television production for 16 years. That was my dream job. But then when I became a mom, I decided to make a shift because those hours just didn't really align with what I wanted and saw in motherhood. And so then I kind of figured out what I could do for my second act in life. I opened my first business and had success with that. So opened a second business and I started coaching women on how to start a second act and take their experience and start something new. So kind of like a gap year, but really figuring out how to just change what you're already good at and what you enjoy to do something else. And I've gone on to open several businesses since then. I wrote a book called Start Your Second Act. So I really love that space of reinvention and starting over in your career because I think we can all do it.
Yeah, I love that. And I like that you call it a second act as well. Like
Mhm.
our stories can be so many different chapters or acts or however you want to look at it, that we are not a one-trick pony. We are not on one career trajectory or one role trajectory our entire lives. There's so much opportunity before us, and being able to harness that and to be excited about that it's just an exciting space to be working in.
I love that you call it opportunity because I agree. I feel like it's an adventure. And instead of kind of grieving what you've done in the past, and whether you're find yourself laid off or just having to make a change, you can say, no, this is an adventure. What is next for me to do in this one life I'm given? Let me live it to the fullest.
Yeah, amazing. And I like that you noted too that sometimes it's a proactive piece, or we're actively participating in it, and sometimes life can throw us a curveball and we have to be reactive in that space as well. And so it goes either way. And if we continue to not necessarily keep glass half full and be positive, 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 but come at it with curiosity and come at it with seeing it as something that is an opportunity rather than that shortfall or that penalty or whatever you want to look at it as. I think it really can change the outcome as well as the process that you go through as you're navigating that.
I agree.
Yeah. So I have a question for you. So you work predominantly with women. And so why do you think for women we experience this desire for change or this opportunity for change or this reinvention? What makes part of a woman's life something that has those points of transition or those points of opportunity in it?
You know what? I think for a lot of us, we're maybe not everyone's a type A like me, but we follow the rules. We're rule followers. We're told, okay, pick a major. Okay, go for that. Study this. Get that first job. Okay, climb the ladder. And we're on this trajectory before we know it. And we're climbing that ladder. And then, that role that we chose at 21, 22 doesn't fit us in our 30s, 40s, or 50s. And you wake up and you say, how did I get here? And sometimes
Mhm.
that's having a family, sometimes that's caring for your elderly parents. It can be anything that happens where all of a sudden you're looking at yourself and you're saying, wow, for the first time, I'm taking a pause and I'm looking at my situation and I'm asking myself, am I happy with where I am? And if that answer is no, or something just doesn't feel right, we are allowed to re examine and to say, well, what should this next act or chapter look like? And how can I use everything from my past so I'm not throwing it away? I'm using those as transferable skills. And I think for women to allow to give themselves that permission, that is the hard part because we're so used to playing along and playing the game and following those rules.
Yeah, as a raging feminist, I definitely hear that there are these societal expectations, and we get caught up in it without even realizing the influence that is happening around us, and that forward momentum can kind of be like a current that we get caught up in and we get whisked away. And then at some point, when we check in with ourselves, we're like, wow, I'm not living in accordance with my values, or I'm not living in accordance with my best skill set, where I'm actually using my brilliance or my life experience or my wisdom, and I need a change. I'm not satisfied with the status quo. I'm not satisfied with where I've ended up. And I'm getting antsy. I want to be the fullest version of myself,
Mhm.
without exploiting myself, without going like beyond what capacity would dictate. But I want to be that whole person. And I think as women in the 21st century, we have different opportunities in front of us. And it's really magical to be alive at this point where we are seeing this shift and we are seeing this push back against the patriarchy and against formal roles and traditional roles. And there's just so much opportunity before us. So I'm really excited to be alive. And it's also very difficult to be navigating all of those shifting societal expectations, as well as kind of being that strong woman or that person who's going after something that they're interested in.
Yes, and I actually like to look at it like checking the box. For me, leaving my dream career I dreamt about since I was 5 years old, I chose to look at it like, you know what, I accomplished this, and I'm going to check the box and I'm going to see what's next. And I think when you make that little shift, and you can, whether you're a teacher, or a banker, or marketer, whatever it is, you can say, I've done it up to this point. It's not feeling that great anymore. So let's check the box and let's see what else we can move forward and try, and then check that box and keep going because life can be so much fuller if we allow ourselves the opportunity, I think, to see what else we can do and not look at it like, oh, I worked so hard to get here and now I'm just leaving it or throwing it away. It's not that at all. And I think that's where those societal expectations have to shift for us.
Yeah. As somebody who left the teaching profession, people thought I was nuts. It's a stable job. You've got a great pension. You got your summers off. What are you doing throwing that all away? And I really didn't see it as throwing it away at all. It's part of what led me up to who I am today. It is part of my development personally and professionally, and it's part of my journey. And it was a stepping stone for where I am today. And some of the skills I use on a daily basis, some of them I almost never use, but it's part of my whole package and it's part of my journey. And I'm proud of every step that I've taken along the way. And I hope other people can see it that way as well. Nothing is a misstep. It is
Mm-mm.
just a stepping stone, and it's not a linear journey by any means for anyone.
No. No, we're in a totally different generation than our parents and our grandparents who maybe did see it as very linear and I'm going to choose this and I'm going to retire from this and that is that. But we have so many more options, which is really exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that. Now, we kind of talked about like in an idealistic world, we can explore, we can do all these things, but it's really hard to move from ideation and dreaming to taking action. So, what are some of the things that hold people back from taking action? And what are some things that they can do to kind of initiate and move themselves forward in some way?
Well, I love that because ideation is so key to just get you excited about the
Mhm.
possible option in front of you. But I'm very big on research and planning, which is fun for some and not for others. But once you take this idea you have and you start looking into what does a day to day in that role look like? You might find that it's very different than you had ideating in your head. And you can say, oh, that's really not for me. And I've had clients come to me with, I want to open a Pilates studio. And we start getting into the nuts and bolts of what it will cost, what the day to day is. And they say, whoa, I didn't realize I wouldn't just be teaching Pilates. And it's like, no, you're running the business.
You got to
And
do your
therefore,
accounting. You got to be behind the
yes.
computer. You got to be marketing. You got to be doing all these things that
Yeah,
are,
the not exciting part.
yeah, yeah.
But it's in the research of really what that looks like, what other businesses that are successful look like that are out there and open, that you can really start to decide, yes, this is absolutely, I'm on the right path. This is what I want to do. Or, you know what, this isn't what I thought it was. Let me start from scratch and look at the next idea. And I've seen it both ways from the clients I've worked with, and both ways it ends up being very valuable. So I think that research step is so easy to do. And while you're working full time, or if you are taking a break in between your roles, you can do research in the 5, 10 minutes, 15 minutes you have free every day over your morning scrolling or your lunch or your coffee, just to start researching or reaching out to people on LinkedIn to say, hey, I know you work in this role. Can we have a quick chat? Can you tell me what it really is like doing this work? Because that can get you excited and again, that confidence to keep moving forward. So I think research is great. And to also, keep your ideas close to your chest if you need to in the beginning. Before you tell everyone, hey, I'm making this transition, get confident. Do that research so that you can be confident to not be swayed when someone who might be a little bit more fear adverse or change adverse to say to you, oh, I don't know, Michelle, if that's a really good idea.
Mhm.
And so you can be confident because you've done the research, you know this is what you want to do, and you have a way of saying, thank you so much, but I've got this. I know what's next. So I think those are really the best places to start to get your momentum going.
Yeah. And I love that research component. And I love even when you find maybe it's not the direction for you, you can look at it and say, okay, well, what about that did I like have this reaction to that was like absolutely not?
Yeah.
And a lot of people when they're thinking about entrepreneurship, they think about just the client facing stuff that's really exciting. And then when you actually pull it apart, you're like, oh my gosh, there's so many other pieces to this that I really don't want to do. And so when you look at that, you can look for patterns and be like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, I actually don't want to be an entrepreneur. I want to be a Pilates instructor. I don't want to own
Yeah.
my own Pilates studio. And again, it's aligning with your skills and your gifts and your talents and your values and getting and inching closer to
Mhm.
whatever that next piece might be. And without that research, you can kind of jump off a cliff into something that you aren't prepared for. But spending that time to really calculate it out is clutch.
Yeah, because I always say you don't want to just leave a situation that doesn't feel good to leap into a situation that doesn't feel good. So you
Mhm.
really want to make sure you're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, and the grass is always greener, they say. And so you can, without that research, you're looking at the Instagram version of whatever that is. You're looking at the highlight reel. You're
Yeah.
not necessarily fully informed about what that is. And so you're gonna come up with other things that are less ideal. But if you can do that research, then like you said, confidently move forward which I think is a huge step in the right direction.
Yes. And the financial piece too, just to touch on that, is that sometimes you have no idea what it's going to cost, or you look at it and you say, well, these are the roles it within this step that I don't want to do. Well, now you have to hire somebody to do those, and you might not financially be ready. So in that research, it's also researching your finances and what do you have saved and that you feel comfortable with having to move forward. So I think that is a really important part to not gloss over as well, is that that's part of the research. What
Yeah.
can you afford and when can you afford to make this change?
Yeah, and especially in very kind of turbulent economic times, we don't know what the future is going to hold for us. We don't know where the jobs are going to be. We don't know what the markets are going to look like, and it can be a little more daunting to step out of something that's kind of guaranteed at the moment into something that is unknown. So really crossing your T's and dotting your I's and making sure that you've got a good plan moving forward can give you that reassurance financially as well that you are going to be able to take care of yourself and your family. And as women, we know that people depend on us. They depend on our time, our energy, our income if we're bringing in an income. Like there's so much that people depend on us for. And so structuring our lives and being intentional about how we structure our lives moving forward is really our responsibility
Mhm.
to make sure that we can continue to be the amazing women that we are, and the people around us can be supported in the way that they need from us.
You're so right.
While filling our cup, right?
Yes, yes.
We gotta do our own stuff as well,
We do.
which we can't overlook either.
Exactly.
So, how would somebody know if a second act is right for them? Because there's lots of people that dream of it, think of it, imagine it, but how would somebody know for sure? Like, no, it is now time for me to move into my second act. Are there any indicators, any questions people can ask themselves? How would somebody know that that's the right step for them?
I always like to go back to your why. So, why are you thinking about this move? And what is it about this particular role that excites you? And really driving back to that in every decision you make, moving towards that, that you reflect and make sure that it goes back to your why. So, for example, for me, when I left television, I did it for my children. I wanted to not miss another first birthday or Halloween or anything special. I wanted to be there for dinner, bath, and bed. And so my why was being able to create a business or find some role where I could have that flexibility to be with them. So when I was looking at my first business to open, I found businesses that were going to have me away on weekends and working all the hours. And I said, okay, no, that's not the right direction. Let me keep looking. So I kept choosing everything based on my why. And I do that with every business or venture or opportunity that I say yes to. It goes back to being able to be with them. And so everyone's whys are different. And I think just knowing this is why you're choosing this and this is why it's important to you will help you, again, be confident in your decision and make sure you're choosing the right end result. So I'd say really knowing your why and thinking about, well, what if at the end of this life you didn't make this change? Would you have a regret? Because
Mhm.
I'm really big on living now so that there aren't those regrets at the end of the day. And I think that's important for us, for our well being, and for us to just fill our cup, like you said. So that's not a selfish question to ask yourself. It's something really important that you don't want to look 20, 30 years down the road and say, I wish I wrote that book, because you writing the book then might be very different than you writing the book now. And so just to allow yourself um, that line of questioning as well, I think is really important in deciding if this is the right time for you to start the second act.
Yeah, I love having filters. I think
Yeah.
that to me is such a great way to for decision making is what is the filter that I need to filter every question through. And so does this align with my why? Very,
Hmm.
very straightforward. Is this putting me closer to what the life that I want, or is it not? And that can make things crystal clear, crystal clear. So something that was very muddy, and you're like, oh, that could be good. It could not be good. I don't know. Maybe if you have that very clear filter, it becomes black and white very quickly for a lot of scenarios. And then that added layer of like the regret piece, just layers right on top of there, and gives a sense of, I want to say urgency, but not like a danger urgency, but let's not waste this one precious life that we have. And there's never going to be the exact right moment, the exact right circumstance for a move to be made. And sometimes you just need to feel ready enough to make that step. But it's never going to be perfect. So stop waiting.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be a huge life-changing, decision you're making. It could be, I've always wanted to learn how to dance and now I'm going to take some classes, or, I want to, just give yourself that opportunity to try something new so that you don't look back and say, whoa, I really wish I did that. It's those little things that make our lives fuller, that don't have to cause the chaos in our family. We can do it in a way that feels good for everyone.
Yeah. Or even incrementally too,
Yeah.
right? Like the first step is those dance classes, and then it is something else, and then it is something else that can layer upon, and it's those baby steps and that scaffolding to get to a place where you're feeling satisfied with more areas in your life.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way to say it. I love that.
All right, so we are leaving folks with some ideas of things that they can take action on from your incredible expertise here. And if folks wanted to get in touch with you or work more in depth with you, they're like, "Hey, the Shannon girl, she's got some information I need. She could really help me on my journey." Where can they get in touch with you?
They can head over to secondactsuccess.co. That's my website. It's got information on my coaching, my podcast, my book, free resources, all of that.
Amazing. Yes, I love that. So, for anybody out there who's thinking about this second act as an option, Shannon is a great resource for you. Shannon, thanks so much for joining us on the podcast today.
Thanks for having me, Michelle. I feel like we could have talked all day about this.
100%. And if people do want to talk, they can call you, they can call me, and we will just chat until forever. Amazing. All right. To all of our listeners, thanks so much for joining in and keep on adventuring.